Welcome back to the show, everybody. Take a look at these headlines. Listen to these headlines here. We got the Fed that just raised rates. Janet Yellen says the U.S. dollar currency status is in jeopardy. We're going to get into it. We got Moody's, Caitlin Long, and don't forget about Fed Now, UAE Central Bank, R3 and Enbridge. And SEC files a response to Ripple's letter. You're going to want it all. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter for exclusive content. Right now, $1.23 trillion market cap for cryptocurrency. Welcome back. Good afternoon, everybody. 3.5% up on the market right now. Bitcoin, 28,300 plus at the time of making this video. Ethereum, 1,800 plus right now. Tether market cap, 78.7 billion. Watch the video from this morning if you haven't done it. I'm telling you, there's a lot of money piling into this asset, into the USD Tether, looking for a safe haven during this crypto choke point 2.0. Be very careful that this doesn't become the last choke point to happen. Make sure you know where you got your money and your funds. XRP right now, 44 cents. Let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. XRP Las Vegas, 42 days away is what we're looking at right here. We will sell out. That's a guarantee. I can tell you that. There are less than 100 tickets left, and well under that, to be perfectly honest with you. If you're going to get a ticket, you've been on the fence about coming to this event. The opportunity, what is the chances that we're going to have all of these people together in the same place again for you to be able to rub elbows with, participate in a Q&A, fireside chat with Eleanor Terrett and John Deaton. I mean, it's just remarkable. So many things to appreciate about what's going on at this conference. And let's not forget each and every one of you. We have one of the greatest communities online. It is time to solidify those relationships in person on the XRP Las Vegas conference. It's going to be amazing. Click and get your ticket before they are gone. Eleanor Terrett reminds us here about Coinbase and the Wells notice that they've gotten. Coinbase says, we asked the SEC specifically to identify which assets on our platform they believe may be securities, and they declined to do so. Today's Wells notice also comes after Coinbase provided multiple proposals to the SEC about registration over the course of months, all of which the SEC ultimately refused to respond to. How about that for clarity? Eleanor Terrett says, it's like being thrown in jail and not being told what you were arrested for. It is exactly what it's like. Well, let me tell you what, buckle up. We got some news here. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said this: debt default would undermine the dollar's reserve currency status. Yellen says failure by government to pay its bills would be economically and financially catastrophic, have horrendous effect on the financial markets. Not to mention the fact, like we covered on the video from yesterday about BRICS, almost no one is covering that more than half the world is building a new payment system, and it doesn't include the United States. And don't think for a second that that's not rolling around in her mind. She knows not just the debt ceiling, which is very prominent, which is very relevant, but then there's the old 1-2 punch. We know the Fed raised the interest rate quarter point. And what happened the last time the Fed raised rates? We saw Moody's come in and do a downgrade, and the next thing you know, SVB went under. The old 1-2 punch. Well, guess what? It's not looking good for the banks again. Here from Gold Telegraph now, breaking news. Moody's sees risk that U.S. banking turmoil can't be contained. That does not sound good as right. And on the heels of what Janet Yellen just had to say, boy, oh boy, do we have something in front of us. What are they going to do? Turn the print machine back on again? Because it's starting to sound like it's not working very well. Now, here's a clip here from Caitlin Long, and I want you to listen to what she says here about how the banking regulators are crushing innovating banks that are working with the crypto industry and blockchain industry. And it's because they want to stick with retrograde technology and go back to an analog world. Listen to this, and then I have a thought for you.
So here's the punchline. The systems have not been updated, and that scares the bank regulators. So what did they systematically do? They went out and proverbially shot the most tech-forward banks. Now, stop and think about that. People are voting with their feet to use better, faster, cheaper ways of moving money. And what did the bank regulators just do? Shut down some of the most tech-forward banks in the country who can move money better, faster, and cheaper. That should scare every American because, and you saw it in the White House. By the way, this has been all coordinated. The White House report that came out the day before was dunking on financial innovation and talking about how we should basically just stick with our banks, which are safe and sound. That was a hilarious observation because, of course, we all know the banks are not safe and sound. It's now very clear that there is a solvency hole. By the way, there always has been. It's just that now everybody's realizing it. So the next point is that when the White House is out there saying, basically taking an anti-innovation stance, and you see what the bank regulators have done to shut down some of the most tech-forward banks, they want to retrograde technology back to the analog world.
But do they really? And listen, I have a great respect for Caitlin Long, and I want to see Custodia Bank get a chance to go because it deserves to. But I have to push back a little bit on this. Do they really want to retrograde? Look, I understand that the legacy firms and the governments just don't want things to change. If they had it their way, they would just have things stay the same. But it isn't so. Because in July, what do we know? I'll tell you what we know. In July, the Federal Reserve announced that FedNow will be live. So they're going to launch their own system. The question I really have is have they made that transition from wanting to cling on to the analog retrograde system like Caitlin Long suggested? And is it more now that they just want it to be their system, which is easily just as wrong? Competition is best. A free market, open free market. Wrath of Commons says here, now this gets interesting. And it may have some big implications 12 to 15 months down the road, including for Ripple. Project Enbridge doesn't use R3. China, Hong Kong, Thailand, cross-border, and the India connection is unknown so far. Dubai at the center. If we go into this article here, it says today the Central Bank of the UAE announced that R3 is its technology provider for the central bank digital currency work, alongside G42 Cloud for infrastructure. The three pillars of its first phase strategy have already been announced, with a plan to complete them within 12 to 15 months. First is Project Enbridge. Now, I'm going to remind you right now that James Wallace, don't you make me play that clip. You know I've played it a bunch. I ain't going to play it again. Y'all know it. James Wallace from Ripple has acknowledged that XRP Ledger and XRP is one of the Enbridge tested products. Not the only one, but it is certainly one of them in the Enbridge category. Pilot test, what do you ever want to call it? Now it says here the wholesale cross-border CBDC solution with BIS and central banks of China, Hong Kong, and Thailand, which aims to soft launch during that period, given that Enbridge uses a custom permissioned blockchain. We suspect R3 is not involved. The plot thickens. Second is the bilateral cross-border CBDC project with India announced last week. And finally is the domestic initiative for both wholesale and retail CBDC with proof of concept to be completed during the time frame. You know, we don't know the answer, but I tell you what, I think we're right to be watching this one a lot closer in the coming days. Now the SEC swings back. First, we had Ripple submit and file their letter, which was really Justice Gorsuch and the Voyager case in support of the fair notice defense. I think we all are well aware of that. I'm not going to read this whole letter so you can breathe a sigh of relief. And obviously it's from the SEC, so you know most of it is really twisted and not accurate in its representation. This is some of what they said in there. This is what the SEC says. Defendants, speaking of Ripple, shamelessly mischaracterized the Voyager bankruptcy court statements and plucked choice phrases out of context in misguided attempt to boost their unavailing fair notice defense. Now, this is coming from an agency, a government agency, that the judge has already lambasted by telling them that there's a faithful unfaithful allegiance to the law, is what it was. I tell you, the SEC and the lawyers within those walls do not embarrass very easily. I can tell you that, ladies and gentlemen. They will say and do anything. And they're supposed to be acting in the interest of protecting us. And all they have done is harm us and go for a jurisdictional land grab for the agency, regardless of who it harms. And think about the businesses that are put out and buried, just like a cigarette squashed in the ground. Think of it. Look at the library case. Look at Jeremy Kauffman and what they had with library. What happened to them? They went in and saw the SEC, tried to do it the right way. Ripple's done the same thing. Jeremy Hogan says here, the SEC finally replies to the supplemental authority they must be busy with other things. Although it raises valid points, re the Bittner case, which is another case, it says it attempts to argue that the Voyager judge did not say that the crypto space faces glaring uncertainty is smirkable. You know, again, this is the kind of language, and if I could, just very quickly, I'll grab this spot because this is the hot spot out of their filing. Defendant, this is what SEC says here. Defendants shamelessly mischaracterized the Voyager bankruptcy court statements and plucked choice phrases out of the context in a misguided attempt to boost their unavailing fair notice defense. Nowhere in its order did the bankruptcy court emphasize any supposed limited guidance provided generally to market participants, or even suggest that it applied outside the specified or specific proceedings at hand. Indeed, the words market participants appear nowhere in the Voyager opinion. In the ruling on the SEC's objection, the bankruptcy court simply referred to the SEC's limited guidance provided in the bankruptcy proceeding to the court and to the debtors as to whether the particular circumstances of the bankruptcy sale of Voyager's assets might raise issue under the securities law. Concluding then, given the lack of specific charges of violation, the debtors didn't know what they were supposed to prove on these issues. At no point did the bankruptcy court make any observations, let alone findings, regarding the SEC's guidance to the public, that is, the crux of the defendant's purported fair notice defense, nor did the Voyager court find, as defendants contend, that the SEC had not offered any guidance at all as to what Voyager had to show to prove VGX is not a security. Look, I find personally all of that last part of that statement to be completely, unequivocally false. It is absolutely a false statement from what I know, and I'm not even a lawyer. The judge in that Voyager case absolutely body slammed them for not providing clarity. He absolutely did that. So, I mean, again, we're not going to try to litigate it here, but it's just despicable seeing what the SEC has done as an agency supposedly representing the people. Now, sharing a tweet here from Jeremy Hogan, which said, I think these two cases that are bad for the SEC and this reply negates the Bittner decision a little bit, but doesn't take away much bite from the Voyager judge's ruling. but it's all fair notice defense stuff. That's what the takeaway is here. John Deaton follows it and says this: not that XRP holders want to go to the Supreme Court, but let's not forget the language favorable to Ripple's fair notice defense in Bittner came from Justice Gorsuch, who used to work under Michael Kellogg at Kellogg's firm, who orchestrated Ripple's fair notice defense and brief. And that's where we leave it on this day. Go John Deaton, go Ripple, go Jeremy Hogan, go James K. Filan, and everybody else out there. We fight until the end. We fight because we know what we know. And what we know is that the SEC is acting out of the bounds of their agency, and we cannot give up, because if we do, they will win, and everyone and innovation along with it will lose. Not a financial advice, just my digital perspectives. I'll catch all of you on the next one.